Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our live data analytics demo with the Data Incubator Part 2. We have instructor Michael Cullen with us today. We're so excited to have you join us, and we have some really great content lined up for you. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand it off to Sierra and Michael to get us started.
Thanks for joining our live data analytics demo. All right, welcome everyone. As Nikki just mentioned, my name is Sierra King, and I am the Admissions and Program Services Manager at the Data Incubator. And we are a fellowship, scholarship, and placement company. We have promised you an excellent info session today that will be led by one of our instructors, Michael Cullen. And Michael will link a notebook in the chat that he'll be using during his demonstration. So please make sure you have access and can follow along. To start things off, I'd like to give you a quick overview of our program and everything that we offer, and then Michael will jump in for our live demonstration, and we will leave some time at the end for questions. Please place all of your questions in the Q&A section, and we will answer them at the end of the session. As a reminder, our session is an hour long today, so if we don't get to all of your questions, please email us at admissions@thedataincubator.com, and we will be happy to help you. So a little bit about us and what makes the Data Incubator different. The Data Incubator focuses on training people to become data scientists and data analysts. And why is that important? Well, it's really because data scientists have the ability to work with the latest tools on unstructured and structured data to drive business value. This is a big need in the world right now. We work with companies in a ton of different industries, ranging from tech to finance, retail, healthcare, and many more. Every company has data and wants to use that data to drive value for them. So there are a lot of other data-focused programs out there, so I'm sure you're wondering what we do at the Data Incubator that's a bit different. Well, what we've found is when you look at training, there are really two types. So one being fast-paced and efficient, and two being slower and focusing on understanding and completion rates. University is one example where you'll receive a more detailed understanding, but with a lot more time invested. On-the-job training is usually very quick and efficient, but maybe you're not fully understanding what you're doing. So we've taken all of these aspects and combined them together to find a great middle ground for training. Our program is fast-paced. You'll walk out of the program knowing a lot about data science and analytics and real-world business applications, and with a deeper understanding as you'd get from university. All of our instructors are PhD and master's holders and have completed this program themselves and know how to provide that in-depth training that you are looking for. We are so excited to announce that for our summer 2021 cohort, we are offering 3 data-focused programs. We'll be offering our successful full-time data science fellowship program and a more flexible version of that, our part-time data science fellowship program. And now our brand new part-time data analyst program. And since this workshop is focused more on data analytics, I will be reviewing our data analyst program. However, feel free to reach out to us again, admissions@thedataincubator.com, if you would like to learn more about our data science focused programs. So even though we'll mainly focus on our data analytics program, let's discuss the similarities in all of our program offerings. All of our programs are intense. They are built around hands-on data-focused curriculums. Though we offer both full-time and part-time programs, both are packed with a lot of information and tools. All of our programs are thorough. Each week focuses on a different data science tool or approach. And in addition to the lectures, we have our students participate in hands-on practice. We really believe in fostering an interactive learning environment. And so in each program, our students are working on mini projects that focus on the data tools you're studying. Additionally, all of our programs are very collaborative. We want students not only to work with their colleagues and instructors, but also have the opportunity to network and connect with our hiring partners. All of our programs are career focused. We have career coaches that help you succeed in your data focused careers. You'll not only learn how to present your best self by attending our career search workshops, but you'll also have the opportunity to work with one of the #1 resume writing companies to get a polished resume and cover letter. And lastly, all of our programs are interactive. Every student in all of our programs are provided a Jupyter server for the duration of the course, so students can follow along in lecture and see and edit raw code that's being run. And students will also receive immediate feedback via our interactive grader. So here's an overview of our data analytics program. We're super excited to announce this new part-time program. The part-time program lasts for 20 weeks with classes held Monday and Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern. You'll also expect to spend 10 hours per week outside of class, and office hours are available each week. The program is great for those who are working or still wrapping up their degree, as it will allow you to work full-time while advancing your data-focused career. You'll receive the same excellent curriculum and training, but at a slower pace, and the sessions are live and instructor-led, so you're still able to interact with your instructor and ask questions. The application process for the program is composed of basic information, resume review, and a career goal-focused group interview, and there's also an optional scholarship application. Throughout the course, you'll work on mini projects to demonstrate understanding of core data analytics topics covered by our expert instructors. As mentioned, not only will you be set up with a virtual environment, but our curriculum will also have you learning with open source tools and popular programs like Python, Pandas, JupyterHub, and Tableau. And we are also so excited to announce our Data Analyst Diversity Scholarship Program, which aims to help remove barriers and provide opportunities for women, veterans, LGBTQ+, and students from racial and ethnic backgrounds that are traditionally underrepresented in technical roles. So here's an overview of our part-time data analytics curriculum down week by week. About our program, I will pass off to Michael to lead you through our live data science demo, and then I will come back at the end to answer any additional questions.
Of course, classic starting off the Zoom call. And I'm just pulling up one more thing here, but thanks for passing things over to me. And we are just about ready to get started with our demo. And effectively, what we'll be building today is an interactive application. We're going to be using something called Streamlit that takes in an Excel file with some synthetic data that I put together, sort of mimicking or sort of, in the form of data for basically promoted posts by social media influencers. And we'll be using this app so that you can upload an Excel file and it's going to generate some metrics and create a report. So in our program, of course, we have fellows and scholars do these capstone projects in the fellowship, the data science fellowship. And Streamlit is a very, very fast and easy framework for putting together quick and efficient data science apps. So that's kind of what we're going to be going through today. Introducing this technology, showing how you would get started with it, and kind of doing it around this real world sort of example. So we're going to be uploading an Excel file. I'm actually just going to jump over to what it looks like. Our starting Excel file is going to look like, and this is data again, sort of like fake data about a bunch of posts by some influencers for some hypothetical company we're working for. So we have dates that these posts have, sales, but what are we getting, compared to what we're spending, and how successful are different influencers? And so with that in mind, again, we're building this Streamlit app. Let me switch back to let us upload an Excel file in the format of the one we just saw. And it's going to compute these metrics. So the cost per acquisition, how many dollars do we pay to actually get a conversion? Now we could group this a lot of different ways. Let's say we're looking at just one influencer over the course of a month. And I say, we spent $500 this month on influencer A. And, not looking at likes, comments, or clicks, we spent $500 and 4 people ended up making it onto our website and buying something, let's say using that particular person's code or link. So that means we spent $500 to get 4 conversions, $125 per conversion. So that's going to be our first metric. And our second metric is conversion rate. So what proportion of people clicking to go to the website end up buying something? So for that same influencer, let's say 100 people clicked through to our website from that influencer's post this month. But of those 100 people that clicked, only 3 of them make a purchase. So our conversion rate is 3%. So these are kind of the two North Star primary metrics we're going to be looking at as we sort of hypothetically try to help out our hypothetical marketing department. And what this looks like, what we're going to be able to do. We end up being able to put together this app that looks like this. And we have this little file uploader, as we might expect. And I'm going to upload. And here we see our report. We have sort of aggregates just by influencer right now, but we could group it by month, by influencer and month, whatever we want. And so we see like 8 total posts, $960 total spend, and take that over to our 2 main metrics here. I can do things like sort these. So I can see, for instance, that with this particular influencer, Lori Young, we were spending almost $1,200 just to get a single person onto our website to buy something. And this is someone on whom we've spent, $3,500, which is relatively high for us, as we can kind of see here. And so that might help us say like, okay, maybe Lori Young is like not someone we should be dumping all this money into, because very few people who like this influencer's posts end up buying stuff. That's kind of why we care about these metrics. But I think that's enough maybe of the business case. Let's take a look at how we're going to do this. And I'll note that a lot of the code for manipulating the Excel file and computing these metrics actually was kind of in the scope of the previous demo. In that demo, we worked on this Jupyter notebook, which lets us, kind of write and execute these little chunks of Python code and sort of, link them together, and also have a lot of nice text and figures and links and so forth. We wrote a lot of the necessary code in this notebook last time to load in an Excel file, to process it in the sort of appropriate ways, and to spit out that report table. And actually, in this particular notebook, we even went so far as to turn that report table into another Excel file. At the risk of jumping around too much, show what we ended up with last time. And I'll note also that you can access that notebook and the relevant code from the same GitHub repository I sent you. But so in that case, we put together a report Excel file that looked like this. So using Python and pandas and actually going back into Excel, getting something broken down by influencer, by month. Sorry, that's not zoomed in very much. By influencer and month. And so we have a lot of flexibility. And so that's what we're going to be using kind of for the machinery for actually like working with the data. So we'll actually be kind of copying and pasting for the most part some of the code that we worked on in here. But again, I'll make sure to link specifically to the repo for that demo as well, so that you can work through that material as well. What I really want to focus on, though, is sort of the workflow and really how fast it is to build a Streamlit app like this one. And so what I wanted to do was actually go, kind of live from the ground up what it looks like when I make one of these things. And, hopefully it should demonstrate that once we get the hang of a couple of things, it actually is very, very fast. Now, a few things that we'll kind of need to do this on our own machine. You will need like a workable version of Python. Now, most operating systems probably come with one by default, but it helps to have one that kind of you use for your own programming. I like to use the Anaconda Python distribution. Just Google Anaconda distribution and you should be able to download it for your appropriate operating system. So we'll need that, and we'll need a couple other things for installing libraries that actually come with, kind of packaged with that particular version of Python. Takes some familiarity with the command line with working from a terminal. And I will note that the way I'm navigating this is somewhat specific to like Mac, like OS X and Linux. Terminal looks a little bit different on Windows, but it's a lot of the same ideas. And we'll need a text editor that's decent for writing code. I like Sublime Text. We'll see it in a second. OK, so now let's kind of follow along in the terminal. I apologize that it's very messy in here. And I'll zoom in a fair amount. So I am in my sort of home directory where things like documents and downloads are. You can get there by saying cd for change directory and tilde. So that's where I am. And I'm going to make a new directory called new Streamlit app. So mkdir, make directory, cd change directory into that app or into that directory or folder. And now we can start doing some fun stuff. We are going to need to have like the right libraries and software like Streamlit and all that kind of stuff. And we're actually going to create a virtual environment in this. Now, if that's kind of a new idea, basically what this means is it's a way of creating a little self-contained world where we can install a particular version of just about anything that maybe is a different version than what we have elsewhere on our computer or wherever it's deployed. And so our environment will give us like a version of Python, a version of Streamlit, and of pandas and all the other things we're going to need. And it's going to make it really easy if we wanted to put this app on the internet or send it to someone else. It's going to make it very easy to ensure that they have all the right stuff too. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use some libraries that, again, came with that Anaconda distribution of Python. So I'm going to say python-m venv virtual environment, and I'm going to give it a name, which I'm just going to call env for environment. That'll take a second as it creates some stuff. And if I say ls here, which lists out stuff in this directory, I'm sure it stands for something that is not list stuff, but that's what I always think of it as, ls list stuff. We see now we have this thing called env. This is a folder, has a bunch of stuff in it. All we really need to know for now is that we need to activate that environment. I'm going to say source env bin activate. And these instructions you kind of can follow along from the repo I posted earlier. So we'll run this. That's going to run a little script that tells us to enter into our virtual environment. So you'll now see like on the left-hand side here, which I almost just tried to point to with my finger, this parentheses env. That means everything we're doing now is inside that new thing we created. And now we're going to install some stuff. For this, we're using pip, which is a common installer for Python. It actually stands for pip installs Python. There's a name for those sort of acronyms that reference themselves, doesn't really matter. Pip install, and we're going to list out the packages we need. We don't need too many things. We need Streamlit, of course. We're going to be working with pandas to manipulate Excel files. We're going to need something called open py for Python, Excel. This lets us work with newer Excel files. And we're going to need something called Watchdog, which just helps Streamlit kind of update a little bit better and a little bit more quickly. And this is all we need to do. These are all the libraries we need. They'll install some other things as well. And now we watch a bunch of output readout as these things get installed. So this will just kind of take a minute here. And again, what this is doing with this virtual environment, this is letting us, again, put this self-contained place where I can say, I want these packages. I could even say if I wanted a specific version of them. And when I go into and I work on this project, new Streamlit app, I'm going to use the environment that I put in that folder. That way I know that it's the right stuff. And if I put it on GitHub and somebody else downloads it, I'm going to have a little file that they can sort of use as instructions to recreate that environment. If I wanted to upload this to make an interactive app on Heroku, kind of some deployed place, right? I can make a little file with instructions for how to download everything. So that's our virtual environment. Now, how do we make that file with those instructions? Well, we're going to run something called pip freeze. And this prints out a whole bunch of stuff. These are all of our libraries we have and their versions. So this is exactly our environment. So you'll notice we have version 0.79.0 of Streamlit. But I don't want to print this out. I want to write it into a text file. So I'm going to say pip and this little greater than sign requirements.txt. that created a text file with all this stuff in it. That's all we need for now. I'm going to clear this out. And for now, actually, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Now that we have Streamlit installed, let's make sure that we can run it. I'm just going to say here, Streamlit hello. This is sort of the test thing for starting up a Streamlit app. And so this loads like a demo application. It's going to actually create a little web server just on my computer that I can go to on my browser. So it opens up in Chrome here. And so we see Streamlit's working. There's a bunch of great information in here about getting started in more detail than we can get into today. That's all good. I want to close this. I'm going to hold Control and press C. And that stopped the app. So if I tried to refresh this now, it's not there anymore. So Streamlit works. That's great. But we want to make our own app. We should probably create something that contains the information for that app. So we're going to need to open up a file in a text editor. I'm going to say subl for Sublime Text. And I'm going to say, let's create something called app.py. It's a Python script. And I've got my Sublime Text window up here. Again, this is a very popular text editor that people like to use for writing code and HTML and Markdown and things like that. I really like it. I think it's very lightweight and it doesn't seem to break that often. So that's always good. This Python script is going to be our Streamlit app. We're going to put in all the code that makes a website like the one we just saw. So to do this, we'll need to, I should be able to zoom in here. Does that work with the usual? It does. We're going to need to import some libraries so that the script can use them. So I want to bring in Streamlit. I'm going to say import Streamlit as st. Now, whenever I use something from Streamlit, I just say st, which is a very common convention. And let's just say right off the bat, let's just put a title. And I say, this is my cool new app. Very creative and informative title. I'm going to save this file. I'm going to go back into my terminal. And we see now app.py is, of course, there. Contains that stuff. And I'm going to say Streamlit run app.py. So from the command line, we're using Streamlit. We're saying, that's the file. That's our app. I want you to run it just locally so that I can access it on my computer. And now we're going to be a situation. We have an app. So we have made a web application now with 2 lines of code. Granted, we had to install some stuff to get there, but this is definitely much more straightforward than putting together like a website from pretty much scratch with something like Flask. But this is not a lot of functionality. Probably would be nice to be able to work with some files. We're going to be using pandas, as I mentioned before, really popular Python library for working with pretty much any data you can fit in a table. It's, ubiquitous, pandas. Import pandas, we're going to call that PD. This is another strong convention. People always call it that, so you should call it that. And now we want to be able to upload our Excel file. So I'm going to say, OK, Excel file. This is going to be where I put my Excel file. And I'm going to say streamlit.file_uploader. And I don't know, I'll just say select. Should turn on word wrapping here so that this is a little bit easier with the zoom here. Select your Excel file. Now, if I save this, so I still have Streamlit running. I've been working on this app, and you'll notice now at the top, source file changed. We can say rerun. I could also say, if I maybe do this again, so some exclamation marks here because we're excited. Source file changed. Rerun. Let's click always rerun. So now if I change something and I hit save, it's going to update right away, which is really convenient. So select your Excel file. If I click this, it gives me a little file browser. So I could load this file. Doesn't really do anything for me right now. It's just loaded in there. But again, one line of code. We have an interactive widget for uploading a file from our computer. And we're going to see basically one more line of code, turn that into something we can work with. One more line of code, display it. So I'm going to say, cool, got my Excel file. It had that conversions table. I'm going to say pandas, read Excel. And I'm going to say that should be my Excel file as my first argument. That's what I want to pass in. And I'm going to say sheet equals conversions. And let's take a look at that. So to do that, we're just going to say st for streamlit.write conversions. Now, fingers crossed that I haven't made any typos here. That is, I think, actually sheet name, maybe with an underscore. So I'll note here, maybe this is a good thing to note. I had an error in my code. This argument is incorrect. It might be something like sheet underscore name. That's what we needed. So that error message showed up in Streamlit, kind of told us what was going wrong and kind of helps us figure out where to fix stuff. Correct one is sheet underscore name. So I've read in an Excel file. I've turned it into a table, which maybe doesn't seem that exciting. But I have turned it into something that pandas can work with. Let's do this again really quickly for posts. Excel file, sheet underscore name equals posts. Oops, fix that. And also say st.write posts. So I've got that down here as well. And this is that table that we kind of expected to see. Now, we're going to be bringing in some code just from the other notebook. But just to demonstrate, in case you're not super familiar with pandas, I could do something like this. I've got this posts table, and I might say, got all these influencers. How much have I spent on each of them in the range of dates in this file? So I want this cost column. I want to add that up, grouped by this one, influencer. So working with pandas basically looks like posts. That's my little data frame I read in from my Excel file. Posts that group by group. I guess that's as clear as I can say it. It's going to let us, do stuff by grouping on these influencer names. I'm going to select now. I just want to do some stuff with cost here. Let's add that up. I'm going to save again. And there we go. This is how much I spent per person. Not bad. Maybe one more kind of interactive thing before we bring in a bunch of kind of copy and paste in a bunch of code. I might demonstrate, okay, here we sort of hard coded in, group this by influencer, but this is an interactive app. I think we could probably imagine that someone using this app might want to try something like, okay, can I group by the influencer? Can I group by the date maybe? Or how about the follower group? People within, 1,000 to 2,000 followers and so forth. So maybe we'll see if we can make some interactivity for that. Now, I don't want to get rid of these things where I show the raw data. I think it's useful, but I think some organization would be nice. So I'm going to say Streamlit header raw data. I'm going to say Streamlit.subheader conversions. I'm going to say Streamlit.subheader posts. So now when we're looking at this stuff, it's a little bit more clear what we're actually looking at, which is kind of nice. Streamlit.header total spend, hit save again. So we'll be working in this section. And we want to make something where we can pick out columns from here. And for now, let's hard code some of these in. Let's say, why don't I just start with follower group and influencer. So I need to make some way of picking between those two things. Drop-down menu probably be nice. Streamlit.select box, I believe with no underscore, it's going to let us make such a drop-down menu. So we'll give this a label like we did kind of with the Excel uploader. And now I'm going to pass in a little list of things. I'm going to say, how about influencer? How about influencer, I'm sorry, follower group? With an lowercase g. Now let's see what happens. Let's say like, how about something like this? Not bad. And what did we do before? We said posts.group by. Here we're just going to say column, and it's going to use the selected thing from here. Say cost. Let's add it up. So now if I select, oh yeah, and I need to do streamlit.write. So now I can say this is how much I spent on group 2, people between 2,000 and 10,000. Okay, maybe that's good enough. I can switch to influencer and all this kind of good stuff. So that's some of the basics of a few things that we can do with Streamlit. I think what I want to do now is sort of show the app that we started with and some of the functionality in that app, and talk about some of the code that makes that more complicated app that I, probably took me more like 30 to 40 minutes to write, and which would be, we'd be going pretty quick if I kind of walked through this whole thing. So this is the one we started with. I wrote it the same way I did this stuff, basically, in a little file called app.py somewhere else on my computer. And I'd like to open that file so we can kind of look at those things side by side. This is the app.py in the GitHub repository that I sent out in the chat, by the way. So in here, we have a lot more stuff going on. We have all these things with def. These are functions I defined. We have this thing that says st.cache. I want to talk about this in a moment. And so I'm bringing in all of these functions. Now, these things I basically copied and pasted from that Jupyter notebook I showed earlier. And I know we've been bouncing around a lot of different places and concepts, but again, that's something we built in the previous data demo to sort of do all the mechanics of making this report and to export it into an Excel file. So we're reusing that code. We're saying, great, marketing department loved that we could make these Excel reports, but maybe it's going to be a lot more efficient if we can put together a little app that they can just use and we can update and they can go to it online and all that kind of stuff. So we copy and paste it basically into Streamlit, make an app. So I've got a lot of functions I'll be using. I've made a title, I've made a header, and I've got all this text here. And I wrote that as just a big chunk of text under this thing called streamlit.markdown. So this is markdown text. It's the same way that you would write text in a Jupyter notebook, in a README file on GitHub, same way you would write text in a static blogging website built on Jekyll or Hugo or a lot of other things you might use for blogging. Kind of looks like this. Things for bullet points, things for italics, things for headers and so forth. And Streamlit lets us do this to write big chunks of text, which I find very convenient. So we have just some description here, like we looked at earlier. And now we have, oops, actually just a little bit of code. It's making use of our functions from up there that we are basically reusing though. So as before, I'm saying, cool, I have my Excel sheet. That looks the way it did before. I've got kind of an interesting thing here that says, if not Excel sheet, stop. So this means if we haven't uploaded anything yet, Streamlit is not going to do all the stuff that shows up below, which is what we want. But if we do have something here, then all of this stuff is going to happen. And what is going to happen? Well, I'm going to load in some data from that Excel sheet into my conversions table and my posts table. I'm going to take those, I'm going to pre-process them. That basically is a function that we wrote last time that squishes them together, basically creates a new column on the posts table for conversions. It's just basically doing a merge. And now I'm saying I want to generate a report by influencer. So this is kind of like what we just did, where we just added up the cost by influencer, but it's going to give us all of our metrics. And again, we can group by different things. So I create that report. I have a subheader, and I'm going to output that report. And in this case, I also wanted to make a little thing that we can expand and contract if we did want to see the raw data. And so that we see with this Streamlit beta expander, and it basically works like this, which certainly more clear if you read the Streamlit documentation and kind of look through this code more. And that really is all we had to do for our app. A lot of this was text, I guess. Really only a couple lines of new code after we wrote all of these functions in the Jupyter notebook. So we had things, again, to load the data, had something to basically merge them together. We had little things that said, cool, take my cost, divide it by my conversions. Take my conversions, maybe divide them by my clicks. Those are our two metrics. We have something that makes that big table. And actually, this is something for a next version of this app that I'm kind of still building. So kind of that for now. I want to wrap up with, actually, no, I think maybe it's not the best use of our time to talk about Streamlit Cache. It's kind of a nuanced point that makes it run faster. So I guess I want to wrap up by just revisiting the process we went through here. Relatively quick process in which we were able to, again, build a little app that we were able to, sort of spin up on our own machine. In a future data demo, I'm going to show in part of the demo how easy it is to take an app like this from our machine and deploy it for free on a website like Heroku in really just a couple of lines of code. It takes about 10 minutes when you get used to it. But what did we do? Well, we made a little directory. So we worked around in our terminal. We made a virtual environment using venv. We activated that environment. We installed some stuff. We saved that stuff, kind of a record of it, into that requirements file. And we installed Streamlit, Pandas, OpenPyXL, and Watchdog. Just a couple of little things using pip. And we froze our environment, again, to requirements. And some typo there. Now we had everything installed. Our environment was activated, and we can test if Streamlit was working. We did Streamlit hello, it was working. And we got into then app.py, where we did a couple quick things. We wrote text, we made a little file uploader. We turned an Excel file into a data frame, a table we can work with. And we, from there, made just a little bit of interactive capabilities for just a little bit of grouping and aggregating things. Again, this is stuff that I wanted to introduce to show partially how we can take our initial kind of analytical work and build on it, kind of keep iterating on our projects to make them more useful for people. And I wanted to show this platform that I'm really excited about for, really just quickly and with very little friction, making responsive, nice looking, very functional web apps that do data science and data analytics stuff. So that's been the demo. I know we've been working pretty quickly. I know we jumped around kind of a lot. Hopefully the kind of the big ideas are sticking in. And again, there's some information in the repository I sent out. And I'm also going to be updating that later with some more in-depth instructions as well. So all that being said, we'll be able to take questions at the end. I do need to turn it over for now to Sierra, who has a little bit more information about the program.
Thanks, Michael. I will share my screen. Okay. So I saw a couple questions in the chat box about career services and job placement. So a big component of our program that we really pride ourselves in is helping our students not only grasp data science or data analyst concepts, but also getting placed in the field. Obviously, our analyst program is brand new, so we don't have data yet here, but for our data science fellowship program, we see that 82% of our students are employed within 6 months of completing the program. And of that number, 97% of those students are working outside of academia or have transferred into industry. Those are really great numbers. We're really proud of those numbers and we've worked really hard for them. That's part of the challenge, not only learning the content, but being able to transition into a data science or data analyst role. And that's really where our program stands out because we help you to do both. So where are graduates now? Where are they working? What are they doing? Again, data is not available for our analyst program just yet, but our data science fellowship will give you an idea. Our graduates are working in 55 different industries. Some of the most common industries we see are computer software, internet, IT, financial services, and biotech. And then some of the typical job titles we see are data scientist, data analyst, research scientist, software developer, and product manager. These titles and roles vary depending on the company and industry, but these are just some of the roles that we've placed in the past. And here is a short list of some of our hiring partners. Many of these companies are also hiring for data analyst roles as well, but we are also focused on building a separate network of hiring partners dedicated solely to our data analyst program. If you'd like to see this list in more detail, please email us at admissions@thedataincubator.com and we'll be happy to share it with you. Another question I've seen was about if we offer any financial aid, and the answer is yes, we do. So especially during times like these, it's hard because people may have extra time to participate in the program, but limited cash flow, so we want to help you with that. We've partnered with LEAP to provide an income sharing agreement. It's great. You can participate in the program with just a deposit down and you won't be required to make any payment until you've graduated and are working and earning more than $40,000 annually. We also provide loans through Skills Fund. Skills Fund offers 3 different loan types. One is a deferred repayment, so no payments during the program and for 3 months after you graduate. The other is interest-only repayments, small interest-only payments during the program and for 3 months after, then full payments. And then there's also an immediate repayment option. Lastly, for many of our part-time programs, many companies are willing to sponsor or pay for their employees to go through our program. It's a win-win. You get to learn great stuff in the evening and be able to apply it to your job during the day. If this is something that you think your company would be interested in and would like to present it to them, we do have a letter we can provide you with that will help lay out the program and all of the benefits for attending. So if you're interested in a company-sponsored spot in our program, please email us at admissions@thedataincubator and we will be happy to provide you with that letter. So where are we right now? Well, we run multiple cohorts a year and we actually just started our spring cohort early April, actually this week, but our application for our summer cohorts are open now. Our summer cohorts will run for our full-time cohort from June 28th to August 20th, and our part-time cohort will run from June 28th through November 12th. As I mentioned earlier, the full-time cohort is 8 weeks long and the part-time cohort is 20 weeks long. Some specifics about the data science application. We ask that you submit your application by April 16th for early admissions, and then you'll have 72 hours to complete the challenge from the time you open it, and the challenge deadline is April 19th. You can't complete the challenge unless you submit the application. Just in general, I recommend you complete the application and challenge sooner than later to avoid any technical issues, because I'm not able to reopen the application or challenge after that deadline. So that's for our early admissions. We also do regular admissions for our data science program. What's the difference there? Well, we really evaluate applicants on a first come, first served basis. So if you want a better chance of getting a fellow spot or knowing earlier if you've been accepted into the program to secure financing, I absolutely recommend applying for early admissions. We also offer a priority enrollment package for our data science program that includes access to a Python training course, early access to career services with a one-on-one and a data science resume writer, as well as $2,000 off your tuition for direct payment. And again, that applies to data science, our data science program. For our data analytics application, our applicants are broken into two parts before we make a decision: the application and then the optional diversity scholarship application, and then the interview. The application deadline for the data analyst program is May 7th, and we will make decisions on May 28th. If you're interested in applying to our program, which of course I hope you are, you can go to thedataincubator.com/apply to submit your application. And if you have any questions about your specific situation, this presentation, or going through the application process, please reach out to us at admissions@thedataincubator.com, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So from there, I will open it up to the Q&A. If you haven't put your questions in there yet and would like them answered, please put them in there and we will answer them now. So right now, I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A. Oh, I just saw one pop in. So one in here is, can you comment on the type of challenge we'll receive, like giving some example? And Michael, maybe you can help me answer that with the challenge for the data science.
Sure. While I don't know that I could give a very direct or specific example, I will say that the challenge has two parts. There is sort of a computer science or coding part of the challenge, and there is a working with data part of the challenge. In the computer science challenge, you're asked to write code to solve a problem that is sort of like pure kind of like algorithm kind of stuff. Sometimes it's a lot of probability as well. This is something where we test kind of your algorithmic thinking, your code quality, and sort of your just general familiarity with programming. In the data challenge, we will give you a link to a public data set, so publicly available data set. It's typically we select a data set that is just a little bit too big to be really used in Excel. And the idea is that you'll be working with, the intent is that you'll work with probably R or with pandas in Python. We see people sometimes use things like MATLAB for it to answer a couple of questions about about that data set. So things like summary statistics, things like some basic statistical testing, sometimes like kind of fitting a basic linear regression, putting a line through some points, and giving us some information about that. Basically manipulating and extracting information from a small to medium-sized data set. We grade you, by the way, on getting the answers right. And also we manually look over, so we reviewers look over everyone's code, and a couple of us will give a rating to each person's code based on just how it, how well it communicates what's going on, if it's clear, if it's efficient versus inefficient. And so you're evaluated on kind of a composite of those two things.
Thanks, Michael. I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, just one popped in. So says the staff presented was excellent and wonderful. How can amateurs in programming like us catch up to that level?
That is a great question. I will say that, part of it is definitely practice and, things like the speed at which like I'm kind of like spinning up those apps as I'm doing them, a lot of it's kind of like muscle memory. I've made like, especially like little example ones like this, I've made like dozens of like little Streamlit apps. So it's like a pretty mechanical process in my head. That being said, there are any number of like really informative and wonderful tutorials for kind of like getting off the ground with Streamlit, with pandas. There's a lot of basically great foundational material that's freely accessible on the internet. And I would highly recommend, for beginners to engage with that stuff, work through some examples, especially in things like pandas. As you are preparing for the data challenge, as you're preparing, for the TDI programs as well. It's slow at first, but the more you do it, the more it sort of becomes second nature.
I did see a question pop into the chat about the recording for the first demo. And if you email us at admissions@the-data incubator, we'd be happy to send you the recording for the first one, and then you'll automatically receive the recording for this session today. Any other questions? I'm not seeing anything else in the Q&A. So if you have any last minute questions, please put those in there now. If not, you're always welcome to email us at admissions@the-data-incubator.com, and we'd be happy to discuss any questions or the program with you as well. I'll give it another minute or two. So one in here that says any computer recommendations. Maybe you can help with that, Michael. I'm not sure.
If that is for like a computer for doing data science, I don't know that I know the breadth of like available computers out there. I have a MacBook. I have my issues with it, and I think they're kind of overpriced, but I like the touchpad, so I've been stuck with them for years. I have a desktop that runs on Linux. You can install Linux on pretty much any computer. I would recommend getting used to working in Linux, getting used to working in like a terminal, because when you're going to be working on like any sort of deployed, piece of software or like computer in the cloud or anything like that, those things run on Linux. So it's really valuable experience. By the way, in the fellowship and analyst program, we provide everyone with access to basically like a Jupyter notebook server in the cloud, so that all of the course content everyone's able to do kind of in like a unified way.
Any other questions before we end today? Well, again, like I mentioned, you're always welcome to email us at admissions@the-data-incubator.com. And as a reminder, our application for our summer cohorts are now open. So I encourage you to submit your application there. And if you have any questions while going through the application, we have a lot of different options to reach out to an enrollment counselor. You can reach out to us through live chat, you can text us, or you can send us an email. All right, thank you everyone for joining today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and look out in your emails for the recording of this session. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sierra, and thank you, Michael. Have a good one, everyone.